So today we're going to talk about adding and subtracting fractions. Part of the reason why we spent so much time recently on prime factorization and then greatest common factor and least common multiple is because all those things are related to adding and subtracting fractions. So let's do a quick review here. If I have the following 1/4 plus 1/4. The rules of adding and subtracting fractions are you've got to have a common denominator, which in this case I do because the denominator is 4. And once I have a common denominator, I just add the numerators and keep the denominator. So keep the denominator, add the numerators. Okay, so that's 2/4. Now, that's not the final answer because that can be simplified. And it can be simplified by dividing by the greatest common factor, the GCF, of 2 and 4. That's the biggest number that divides into both. I can divide this by 2. I can divide this by 2. That's the greatest common factor. I'm left with 1/2. So here again I'm looking and I see that I have a common denominator. It's 8 in this case. So I can just add the numerators and keep the denominator. Once again I have to see, can I simplify that? Yes I can, because I can divide the top, the bottom by 2. And that is going to be the greatest common factor of those two. So 3/4 is going to be my final answer. Okay, so here I have 1/2 plus 1/4. So I don't have a common denominator anymore. What I have to do is I have to change either one or both of the denominators to make it so they have a common denominator. And what I can do is I can multiply both the top and the bottom by the same number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for how to change 1/2 into fourths. So I'm going to multiply the bottom by 2. Whatever I do to the bottom, I've got to also do the top. I'm going to rewrite this now. This is going to be 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. I've got common denominators now, so this is going to be 3/4. And 4 is the least common multiple of 2 and 4. That's why least common denominator and actually lowest common denominator and least common multiple are basically the same thing. So here once again I got 2/3 minus 1/6. And subtraction are the same rules. So what I've got to do is I've got to change the denominators to the least common multiple of 3 and 6. Now the least common multiple of 3 and 6, if you remember the whole thing of, well, 3 is prime, 6 is going to be 2 and 3. So the least common multiple is, well, keep the 3's, because that's a common factor, and then multiply by the extra one. So it's going to be 3 times 2, which is 6. So that means I'm going to change the bottom number here to 6 by multiplying by 2. When I do that, I end up with, up here I end up with 4/6 minus 1/6. That's going to equal to 3/6. And that I can simplify, dividing both the top and the bottom by 3. I'm then left with divided by 3, divided by 3. I'm then left with 1/2. That's my final answer. So in this case here, I have to change both the denominators because if it matches up that one is a multiple of the other, then you just have to change one, like in the previous ones where I had a denominator of 3 and 6. I can just change the 3 to a 6, and then I can leave the other one alone because I already have a common denominator there. In this case here, I can't do that. So I have to find the least common multiple of 10 and 4. For 10, it's going to be 2 times 5. For 4, it's going to be 2 times 2. Least common multiple is going to be, remember, whatever's shared, we circle. So it's going to be 2 times 2 times 5, which is equal to 20. So I'm going to have to change the bottom and the top to 20ths. And the way I do that is I'm going to multiply this by 2. have to do the same thing up here. How do I make 4 into 20? I'm going to multiply it by 5. I have to do the same thing up here. So this is going to be 2 over 20 plus 5 over 20 is equal to 7 over 20. So in this case here, I have 6/7 minus 2/3. So I'm going to look and try to figure out what the least common multiple. Well, 7 and 3 are both prime, so I'm just going to multiply them to end up with the least common multiple, and that's going to be 21. So how do I change 7 into 21? I multiply it by 3. So I got to multiply the top by 3 so that they're equivalent fractions. How do I change 3 into 21? Multiply by 7, multiply by 7. So I'm going to end up with 18 over 21 minus 14 over 21. That's going to equal to 4 over 21. So here I have 8/9 plus 1/12. Okay, so I have to figure out again, well, 9 is going to be 3 and 3. Those are going to be my prime factors. 12 is actually going to be 3 and 4, which is going to break down to 2 and 2. So my shared factors are the 3 and the 3. So it's going to be 3 times 3 times 2 times 2. And that's going to equal to 36. So how do I change 9 to 36? Well, I'm going to multiply it by 4. I have to multiply the top by 4 as well. How do I change 12 to 36? Multiply by 3. Multiply by 3. Then I'm going to rewrite it. It's going to be 32 over 36 plus 3 over 36. That's going to equal to 35 over 36. And we're done.